Yes, I've got contrasting opinions, and I know Phil and Ben have heard me say this before. I wouldn't say it's contrasting as in I think they're wrong. I just think it's very context specific. So myself, I know if I drop out the dairy, particularly the dairy fat, then I find that I'm able to drop fat faster. But I can only manage that for about 3, maybe 4 days. Then I start to get heart palpitations. The suggestion to me from some genetic testing that I've done seems to be that dropping out calcium, at least dietary calcium, seems to be the problem for me. So I looked a bit further into it, spoke to some experts on it, and sort of we worked out it seems to be that about 24% of the population have a genetic polymorphism, which means they have a slightly higher requirement for calcium. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying you have to have dairy to, assimilate, absorb calcium, but it's a good way to get it in. And when, of course, we're talking about the context of this question, which is it bad for fat loss? Does it slow down fat loss? I'd say absolutely yes. But for myself, it's not the first thing I'd get rid of. I'll be looking at the macronutrient balance, the protein and fat. The protein amount when I work with clients tend to be pretty stable. Unless we're doing a protocol to lose fat faster, I might elevate protein just to help satiety. But that's the only instance when someone's trying to drop fat really fast, then I'll actually drop fat quite significantly. The biggest thing for me in terms of halting fat loss seems to be that people eat too much fat, funny enough. But there is a part of it which I believe is explained in something called the carbohydrate insulin model. And in my kind of experience of just working with people anecdotally, I can't back this up with any science, but I'd say probably it accounts for about 20% of fat loss. So when you've pulled these levers, so you've got your protein the right amount, you're healthy, you're in a position to actually lose fat, you're in a healthy position to lose fat. You can lower the fat intake slightly. Obviously, don't drop it down to 0 because that's contraindicated. You won't be able to sustain it very long. And when you get to the point where you think, well, I don't really want to reduce my fat soluble vitamins, my fatty beef too much, eggs, what have you, then you can start to move towards the dairy. So for me, it's never a case of taking everything out of the diet. But then, of course, if Phil's working with an autoimmune patient or a client and they're saying to them, look, I'm not well, I've got lupus, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, all this other stuff, arthritis, then it's a different situation. I don't work with that many people that have that issue. So for me, if someone can tolerate dairy, I try to keep it in. But obviously, on the flip side, it is hyperpalatable. It was made thousands of years ago. Ben will probably know best when it was made, but it was made to store fat from animals, like in the form of dairy. So you're looking at, the butter, ghee, things like that. That's essentially what it's there for. That's why it exists nowadays, to store extra fat. But for myself, I keep it in. Now, saying that, I think if I reduce my dairy intake gradually, then yeah, perhaps I would be able to alter my genetic makeup in a way that my expressions aren't quite as strong, so I wouldn't get strong heart palpitations. Of course, I went from a mixed carnivore diet to a lion diet. I lasted 3 or 4 days and I felt horrendous. I felt anxious. As soon as I added dairy back in, my macronutrient content was the same in terms of protein and fat, but getting rid of the dairy seemed to be the problem. I worked it out through a bit of a research. The dairy went back in, first thing. Within 6 hours, I felt back to normal. So for me, it seemed to be impactful, but it's so context specific. So it's good to have different opinions and different experiences, because ultimately we all work with very different people.
You see, you're quite young. I think maybe you probably needed to be weaned better. And I think maybe be sort of species specific. Maybe get out on the streets, pursue some nursing mothers with a breast pump, maybe a tenner, see if you can get something, and see what you can do within your own sort of species, and see if that improves things even further.
Perhaps, yeah, I might be able to save some money as well if I can get it free off the teat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I've got to say on that anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm no stranger to it either. We're revealing our secrets here. But yeah, so sorry, I can never resist these daft interludes, but it's actually not that daft, is it? We are our own species. Let's see what happens with proper dairy consumption.
Also the sugars in human breast milk are quite different to cow milk as well. We've got more like galactase, I think, in human breast milk, and not so much lactose as well. So probably more species appropriate. We've had this question on one of our Q&As before, and people said, are there different kind of diets that are more appropriate in different stages of life? And our answer is yes. Breast milk until you're weaned, and then it's meat. That's it.
Yes, and it is that simple sometimes. But Jonathan hit the nail on the head there with the genetic element, because I think he mentioned the 24%. I did the 23, what is it, 23andMe or something. Anyway, the genetic testing, I can't remember. And I was trying to find my results because I looked that particular thing up, because I'm fine with that. But Harry Sopanos, who isn't British, so he can't be in the panel, but he is a brilliant guy. He's actually got the same thing as Jonathan, I think, where he has
build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.